roll call. Councilmember Houston.
Here.
Councilmember Hasty. And I'm here. I'm the third. I'm the chair. So thank you all for joining us, and thank you to our guests, Caleb and Brooke from Bricker and Eckler, for being here tonight and sharing with us a little bit more about the PACE program. You know, we've kind of been on a journey learning about this, and it's exciting to see somebody who's taken it up from a commercial property perspective, but did want to invite you in so that we could learn a little bit more and get some context on PACE. So we'll go ahead and throw it over to you. We do have limited time tonight. We've got about half hour for the meeting, so I'll kind of try and keep track of time a little bit if we start going over, but I'll hand it over to you, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Sure, happy to present today, and good to see you all. So as you may know, the PACE program, the Property Assessed Clean Energy Program, has really, I think, developed in the Central Ohio community over the past almost 10 years. At this time, the Central Ohio community, most of the communities in the city have all joined into one regional program for PACE financing, and that's the program that's administered by the Columbus-Franklin County Finance Authority. So like with other finance tools, oftentimes having, a dedicated group of individuals who monitor and manage that activity is a helpful thing. The Finance Authority is a servant of all the communities in the county. And so, that kind of made for a natural nexus. Of course, you all have entered into agreements with the Finance Authority for the yard and for other places. So that's their role. And what the Finance Authority does with this Energy District program is essentially shepherd individual projects that are seeking financing through an approval process that evaluates the scope of the project and particularly focuses on the energy aspects of the project. So these projects for PACE financing are all related to energy management, energy efficiency, alternative energy. So you'll see projects that have heavy HVAC and building controls and those types of assets come through. You'll also see some projects that'll want solar as well. So that's starting to become more popular on the commercial side. We're focused on commercial today in our conversation as this is related to the Tri-W project. However, there is a whole nother conversation that we can have at another time about residential PACE and how that works. But focusing again on commercial, the way that these projects function, a property owner is requesting that their project get burdened with a special assessment. And that's the mechanism for paying the financing. So if a property owner has, let's say, a building project and they're working on developing their capital for that building, and they say, hey, I really would like to, enhance the building that I'm building by making it very energy efficient. What the property owner might do is identify certain assets that are part of the overall building envelope and ask for assessment financing for those assets. And an assessment is just like you are thinking about. It's a property tax item. It's an item that is paid every 6 months with your property tax bill. So sophisticated commercial property owners know this, and they know that the property tax bill item is senior to other forms of financing in terms of the priority. And so that affords the opportunity to create a very long-term fixed rate method of financing that is used for commercial development. And so that's really what PACE is all about in the context of the Tri-W project. It's using they're using their asset and their building and they're leveraging the value of that thing with these payments that will be put through the property tax system, and that's really how their financing has been repaid. That the lender is repaid the amount of money every 6 months out of that assessment. And so again, just taking a step back, this is a voluntary process. This is not where council is imposing something upon a property owner that's not asking for it. This is very specifically an ask of the property owner to put this item on the property tax bill. And then, of course, council would have legislation, and that's some of the material that you have that includes the legislative package. So that property owner request is the petition, and then there are resolutions and ordinances that come along following Ohio Revised Code Chapter 727, and those are for assessing the property. And ultimately, at the end of the council process, the assessment is levied by council action, and that assessment is then certified, through your fiscal officer to the county auditor. And then the auditor will put that assessment on the property tax bill for the property and continue billing it until the assessment has run its course. So that's the nature of this. This is a property owner request. This is a financing tool. This will help make their financing more efficient because it's providing long-term fixed rate financing for the asset. And that's actually a very important kind of tidbit in here, is that most of the time banks will not lend for 20 years or 25 years at a fixed rate. Here we have a fixed rate mechanism, and that's important for stability of a property owner's capital expectations for their project. So overall, that's what we're up to. It's definitely a very popular program in Central Ohio. There's been over 100 million of this type of financing, and some of your community counterparts like Columbus, Bexley, Hilliard, Whitehall, Dublin have all utilized this program, Marble Cliff, for different buildings. So definitely understand that there's other development activity in Grandview and that this may come up again. But for this first initial project, that's what you're looking at.
Thanks, Caleb, for the overview. Brooke or Joelle, do you have anything else that you want to add on while you have the stage?
I'll just mention two. I don't know. I'll stand back here.
I think if we all mute fine.
All right, great. Thank you. So the first thing is we actually already have a residential PACE district. So we did that actually maybe about 6 months ago. And the second thing is the legislation, the trio of matters that you've got before you, that council has before it, is subject to some potential changes. So Tri-W has, I think, Brooke, you told me around 20 parcels, maybe 10 of which might end up being subject to this. They're just at this point not sure, I think, which where to best situate the buildings or the improvements that Caleb has talked about. So there is a possibility that there may be some tweaks needed prior to the final review of this legislation.
So just to add on to everything Joelle said, which is all correct, they've narrowed it down now to 4 parcels. So they'll only ask that the assessments be levied on the parcels on which the improvements are going on. So it took a little bit of time for them to figure out exactly which parcels those are going to be. So we will provide updated legislation that breaks out the assessments between all 4 of those parcels and the final amount of the assessments once the interest rate is locked. I can also give an overview of this project specifically if that would be helpful. So this one is going to be the construction of a 6-story building that's going to include some commercial space, restaurant space, about 260 apartment units and amenities, including a fitness center, a pool, and a clubhouse. They are estimating right now that the interest rate is going to be at about 5.4%. They're investing $9,950,000 total in PACE financing. And that is going to be financing building envelope amendments, HVAC systems, and also high efficiency LED lighting throughout. And that is currently estimated to save about $23,927,000 a year in energy savings.
Hey, Brooke, there's some problem with your audio.
You're on mute, Brooke.
Sorry about that. That should be pretty much all of the major details for this one, but we're happy to answer any questions that anybody has about the project specifically or PACE in general.
Sure, Edwards. Could you please ask Brooke to back up? Repeat
Could you
a little
repeat
bit.
yourself?
Sorry, did you say repeat everything?
No, Melanie, could you ask your question?
Can you repeat the last half of what you said, please?
Oh, sure. This one is requesting about this loan, $9,950,000 total in PACE financing, and that's going to be going towards specifically building envelope improvements, high efficiency HVAC systems for the building, as well as LED lighting throughout. And that's all estimated to save about $23,927 a year in energy costs.
Well, thank you guys for the presentation. I will ask if Melanie has any questions that you want to ask. I have had a few questions come into me, but I'll give the opportunity to Melanie if you have some questions first.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll rattle off a couple actually, and then whomever is best suited to answer, Caleb, Joelle, or Brooke. I guess any legal or financial exposure to the city, that this project will still have to go through the Planning Commission, or where that stands. And I actually think that's it, those three questions.
So the project at this point, the area has been platted. The initial or the preliminary and final site plan reviews have been completed by Planning Commission and approved by Council in September of 2018. So that's just as to the sort of the layout, if you will, of what Goodale South will look like. At this point, I don't believe that Tri-W has come in for a site plan review for its buildings. I don't know when that will be, Melanie. I don't think that it really impedes in any way on this or impacts this, because the financing has to sort of lead that process, which, I mean, it could ultimately, impact what they decide to do as far as their building size or square footage or layout or whatnot. So I think the two are kind of independent of one another.
And Melanie, you had a question about financial exposure of the city, and I think you've got a situation here where the way that this financing is structured, the city is really acting as a pass-through of its municipal power. There's no financial exposure. There's no credit enhancement. The city does not pay any fees to do this. Those costs are all borne by the property owner per the property owner's request. So there are financing costs, obviously. It's a cost of capital. There's an origination amount. The lender is going to be paid, an origination fee and things like that. We, document the project. Those types of costs get paid, but they are paid by the property owner because this is just the property owner finance program. It does not involve municipal credit.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Those were kind of a few of the questions that I had. That there's no direct financial commitment from the city or residents that have a question about that, and that the property owner, not the city, is responsible for repaying the lender. From what the city is responsible for, I wonder if Megan, maybe you've given this some thought. What are some of the things from an administrative perspective that the city will be responsible for? What does that kind of look like for staff?
From what I understand, and Caleb and Brooke may know better than I do. We will file the paperwork with the county auditor's office. Then they will start charging the special assessment, I think in 2022. So then we'll get 2 payments for real estate taxes each year. This will just be part of that payment. And then I will remit that amount to the Finance Port Authority probably. I believe that's who it will be. So really it's going to be just a couple payments a year for an amount that we already know about. So, and I've reached out to some other finance directors in the area just to make sure, you know, am I right? Is this not very much work? And they all concurred that, yeah, it's not a burdensome task.
Thanks for that. And also, you know, as we read through the pieces of legislation, the 2020-16, the language is a little bit misleading. So the language is something to the effect of, if the improvements, something that there's language in there that these are public improvements. So I did have a question about that. And Joelle, I think you spoke a little bit to that during our last council meeting. And that's the way that it's written in Ohio Revised Code, and therefore then has to be written that way. Is that correct?
Yeah, I had the same conversation with Brooke before we put the materials in the packet. The revised code does refer to these as public improvements, even though they impact private parcels. And Caleb, maybe you or Brooke can tackle that. It doesn't materially impact the city, but it's a weird turn of phrase.
There's a reason for that, and it's because most assessment power up until this statute was really for the primary benefit of governmental entities. Oftentimes you do things like sidewalks or lighting, and the law is very old. It allows for things like docks and wharves and all that kind of stuff. And in reality, not a lot of assessment power was wielded for private purposes. In 2009, the General Assembly invoked the Ohio Constitution, the energy and environmental sections of the Constitution, particularly Article 8, Section 2.0. And Section 2.0 deals primarily with greening the environment and authorizing government to use its powers to help with environmental purposes. And so that is why this is a public purpose. It's a public purpose because of the green aspects of the environment. It's a public purpose of helping the environment, by decreasing our energy demand. So that's why the General Assembly permitted this. The law, the statute still says public, but it's really public purpose. Public purpose improvements is a better way to think about it.
Thank you, Caleb. That's helpful. And you got Brooke, you were running through, what the project looks like, the details of the project, and I believe that the applicant needs to file what the project looks like with the clerk. So am I right to assume that we have a project description scope on file right now with the clerk? I also heard, Joelle, you say that that's subject to change, and then I would assume that they would refile sort of the new project or the sort of additions or corrections that have been made. Is that right?
Yeah, there are a number of documents. Brooke, you might need to mute yourself for just a second. I apologize. So there are several documents that are on file with the clerk, and we'll have to figure out, what to do as far as making them available in this weird new world of ours. But the petition is one of them. The cooperative agreement is another. And I feel like there's a third one, Brooke, and maybe I'll just mute myself and you can jump in.
Sure. The third one is the special assessment agreement, and that's the agreement that the county signs on to, the county treasurer's office. However, the scope of the project is all laid out in the petition and supplemental plan.
Thank you. And so if somebody wanted to learn more about that, they could make that request to the clerk of the city.
I think we're going to probably end up posting them, with the packet, with the ordinance packet, simply because it's just unwieldy for people to come in and ask the clerk. That said, I don't know that we I think we intentionally did not include them in your packet because they are large documents. But we'll make sure to post them or to have them somehow available for you.
Joelle, you did ask me to put them in council's packets. They are there.
Okay, thanks.
And just kind of the final question. If somebody wanted to learn more about the applicant or sort of the lender here, where could somebody find out more information about those entities?
Yeah, good question. So, Councilman, you've got the situation of private property owner who's doing a financing. I think as the financing terms are finalized and that interest rate is locked, all of the documentation that you all are talking about will be available. So folks will be able to identify the specific capital provider, the specific specifics of the assessment schedule. I would, of course, point anybody who's interested in PACE financing to the Finance Authority's website. That's a good resource. They have an energy page, and they have a couple great staff people, one of whom is an energy manager. He runs their energy program. That's Jeremy Druhot. And Jeremy, as an individual, has a lot of knowledge about the goings-on of energy efficiency projects in town. In addition, folks can look at brooker.com/PACE or other, resources for PACE financing that are available online. You do get into some tricky issues with lenders because the particulars of this lending commitment are going to be things that they're negotiating with their property owner. Lender borrower, they're going to have a negotiation, and not every element of that is going to be public, but the result of it being the interest rate in the schedule are public.
Thank you, Caleb. That's the last question that I had. Councilmember Houston, do you have any additional questions while we have these folks?
I'm just going to clarify. I was scanning back through. These are, lengthy, complicated documents. The project cost, the improvements, is the $9 million figure, right? Separate from just the cost of the actual development. Okay. And so again, with what we have before us is a petition, a resolution in support of the petition, and then the ordinance language. I guess just remind me once more again what that functionally does.
So
Functionally, that go ahead, Joelle, please.
I was just going to say, really, by approving this site or these parcels, you're giving the finance director the authority to certify to the county that it can assess, in addition to the normal taxes, that amount that they're going to pay back semi-annually.
Oh, I had one other question, and I believe we've talked about this, Joelle. There is some need to have this approved by a certain date, but I believe that we thought that if we were able to take this to the process and have a mid-month meeting, that would give us plenty of time to still be within the time constraints that are outlined. I think it was like 90 days from whenever the application was made. Can you clarify that for me?
I'm probably going to defer to Caleb or Brooke. I think what we represented to them when we started talking about a time frame was really to allow them to stay within whatever windows the lenders were offering, certain financing terms, so that these borrowers don't, get stuck in an unanticipated situation. But I don't know if there were statutory requirements that it be completed within 90 days.
Yeah, and Joelle, my response to the question is that this is actually a pretty important point about this financing. Much like when we go and we try to get mortgage financing, we'll get a rate lock from a bank. The same thing is going on with the property owner. They're getting a rate lock from their lender. And we have kind of a situation where they expect that they'll probably close sometime in the November timeframe, but we don't want to have the rate lock occur too early because it can actually be negative for their pricing, their interest rate. So I think that the current expectation of the property owner is that if you're hearing this for a second reading, if I'm following it correctly, that you would hold on a third reading until the first meeting of November, because a third reading and passage on October 19th may be too early for their interest rate. So we can get some more detail about the rate before we get to October 19th to make sure that that is exactly what they would like. But I just wanted to flag that because it is kind of a moving target, unfortunately, and with rates and also elections occurring, that's kind of important for them to hit that target just right. So anyway, I'll follow up with the property owner and get their expectation on a rate lock, which is coincident with your third approval, really.
Yeah, Caleb, if you guys could just let us know by, at the latest, like the Wednesday before the council meeting on the 19th. That way, Leilani, who is our clerk, will know whether to include it on the agenda or not.
Sure, absolutely. We will do that and report back. And I'll try to get a good read of that before and report it back to you anyway, Joelle, so that we're in advance of council packages.
Sounds good. And I see that the mayor has joined the meeting also. I don't know if she had any questions about this.
No, thank you.
Chair Edwards, may I ask one, I think, final question?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks.
We're expected to see potential tweaks to the language, based on some fluctuating, final details. Was that all three of the pieces, or which pieces of the three will that be? Will those we may see changes for?
The document that specifies the amount of the loan, and that may change, Melanie, because the percentage that they would be able to borrow at, might change the repayment, the gross amount of, over the life of the loan. And then the parcel numbers would change. And I'm trying to scroll down. This is a huge packet. I'm trying to scroll down and see which document that would impact.
Okay.
I think it would be 2020-17, which is the ordinance levying the special assessments. Is that right, Caleb? Okay.
All right, everybody. I think we've reached the end of our time. I know we need to transition into what we have next. Do want to thank our guests for being with us. Thank you, Caleb and Brooke, for helping to walk us through PACE and these pieces of legislation that we have. I'll ask is there any other discussion that we need to have?
Chair Edwards, are you seeking a recommendation tonight, or a recommendation to take to council, or holding on that?
My initial reaction is we don't have to yet, but if you I guess I don't hear any opposition to it. So if we want to get recommendation from this group to move forward, I could entertain a motion to recommend approval pending upcoming changes that might occur.
Yeah, I would move to recommend, if I can do that, I think procedurally, all three of those at once, unless with the caveat that there are, significant changes. I think changes that Joelle noted, Director Kozam, to the amount, it would be, we would expect that, right, to see that, and that would be okay to still have the recommendation hold if there's changes to that amount. So I move to recommend pending any significant non-financing amount related changes. Was that clear enough?
Yeah.
And that way we don't have to come back, you know, and because I think if we don't have a recommendation tonight, we would need to come back again as a committee before that November meeting. So.
Well, I'll second that motion. And Leilani, do we need to take a actual vote in committee?
You can just do a voice vote, Ryan.
Yes, it's a voice. It's a voice.
Okay. All right. Well, if there's no other action or discussion, I'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting at 5:33. Thank you again, everybody, for being here. Have a great evening.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Scott.